From beneath a stack of containers in the attic, the journal tumbled out, its leather binding polished smooth from years of use and touch. Inside, my mother's graceful penmanship covered every page, the identical script that had adorned my birthday. Greetings, packed my school lunches, and recorded my growth marks on our kitchen doorframe before her passing 17 years prior. I'm Isabel. And at 31, I was finally tackling the cleanup of my family home's upper storage space. Dad had relocated to Florida with Teresa, his new wife, leaving me responsible for readying the property for market. What I discovered there would demolish every belief I held about how my mother had passed away. Something feels wrong. My mother had penned in a journal entry from 3 months prior to her death. I witnessed Teresa meeting with Victor once more today. They remained unaware of my presence at the restaurant while she slipped him paperwork beneath the table, documents bearing our family's official heading, surrounded by dust-covered storage boxers. My fingers shook as I absorbed these words. Teresa had become part of our world 6 months before my mother's demise. Originally serving as Dad's legal advisor at his manufacturing business, Victor, who had been our family's attorney for 2 decades, had facilitated their introduction. The journal passages became increasingly desperate. Victor keeps pressuring James to update his will and estate documents, claiming they require modernization. But what's driving this urgency now? And why does he exclude me from these conversations? My recollection of those times differed greatly, or rather, I remembered the narrative I'd been given, how my mother had grown suspicious and fearful in her final months, how she'd conjured conspiracies due to her cardiac medication's side effects. Teresa isn't the person she pretends to be, my mother had documented. I've glimpsed her authentic nature when James looks away, how she studies him with calculation, how she's already mentally redecorating this house to eliminate every reminder of my existence. A sudden creak from the attic steps startled me, though it was merely the aging house adjusting, not Teresa's precisely manicured footfall. She avoided this space anyway, claiming dust triggered her allergies. The concluding entries revealed pure panic. Her once elegant script becoming erratic. Discovered evidence today. Papers in Victor's workspace. He's been collaborating with Teresa for months before introducing her to James. They're orchestrating something. Must inform James. Present him with the proof. Meeting Victor tomorrow for a confrontation. My mother passed away the following day from heart failure, a natural death, according to the official report. Closing the journal. My thoughts raced. Throughout these years, I'd experienced discomfort around Teresa, but attributed it to typical stepfamily dynamics, how she'd slowly swayed my father's decisions. Distanced him from longtime companions, recommended asset transfers for supposed tax benefits. My phone chimed with Teresa's message. Sweetheart, how's the attic organization progressing? Don't trouble yourself with old documentation. Simply discard everything. I gazed at the diary in my grasp, then at my mother's final written words. Must safeguard Isabel's legacy. Must prevent them before it's too late. That evening, I consumed every entry following my mother's mounting concerns through the months preceding her death. She had recorded everything: clandestine meetings between Teresa and Victor she'd witnessed, telephone conversations she'd overheard, documents she'd glimpsed on Victor's workspace. Teresa's personal history contains inconsistencies. One passage stated, claims Seattle as her hometown but demonstrates vague familiarity with the region, says she earned her law degree from Stanford, yet when I referenced professors I know, there she deflected the topic. My mother had begun investigating discreetly, accumulating proof. She documented gaps in Teresa's employment record, inconsistencies in her background that others had failed to examine. Even then, Teresa had been performing the role of the ideal professional, the compassionate friend to my recently widowed father. Uncovered something troubling today, my mother wrote 2 weeks before her death. Teresa's deceased husband, he didn't perish in an automobile crash as she stated. He's alive and well in Arizona with his legitimate wife. Who is this woman, truly? With trembling hands, I retrieved my laptop and searched Arizona property records. There it was, Richard Conway, Teresa's allegedly late spouse, still residing with his wife of 3 decades. They had never divorced. Teresa's entire personal history was fabricated. Another passage captured my attention. Victor's been urging James to execute new paperwork regarding trust, structure, and modernization, but the documents I glimpsed on his desk are designed to transfer company control, complex legal terminology about successor rights and conditional beneficiaries. These identical terms had surfaced in documents Dad signed the previous year papers. Teresa had described as routine modifications to safeguard our family's financial interests. I'd felt compelled to sign as well, with Victor speaking rapidly about tax optimization and liability protection. My phone buzzed again with another Teresa message. Discovered any intriguing family photographs up there? I'd enjoy viewing them. Perhaps I'll assist you with sorting tomorrow. I considered her flawless smile. How she'd established herself as the devoted stepmother while gradually assuming control of everything, the residence, the business, Dad's, social connections. Even now, she was likely concerned I'd uncover something that would reveal her carefully crafted deceptions. I required assistance from someone capable of interpreting the legal documents my mother had mentioned, but Victor couldn't be trusted. His involvement in this scheme was evident. I needed an external viewpoint, someone unconnected to Teresa or our family enterprise. Searching my contacts, I located Sarah Choon's number, a law school colleague specializing in estate disputes. If anyone could help me untangle this web of lies, it would be her. Sarah met me at a restaurant far from my usual locations, where encountering anyone who might inform Teresa was impossible. I brought the journal along with copies of every estate document I could locate. This is fascinating, Sarah commented, examining the paperwork. These trust adjustments aren't mere updates. They're completely restructuring ownership authority. This clause essentially grants Teresa veto power over major business decisions once your father reaches 60. He turns 65 next month. I realized, my coffee cooling as we studied the documents and examined this. The succession planning prioritizes any future children Teresa might have over you regarding inheritance rights. Has she discussed wanting children? I recalled Teresa's recent hints about feeling maternal, her sudden interest in family expansion at 4. She's mentioned IVF, suggesting Dad isn't too old for more children. Naturally, Sarah's expression grew grim. Any child she bears with your father would secure her permanent control over everything. The company, properties, family trust. You'd be essentially I produced my mother's journal. Mom suspected something similar. She planned to confront Victor the day she died. Sarah looked up sharply. The day she died, was there an autopsy? Heart failure, I replied. She had a pre-existing condition. Everyone believed the stress from her paranoia likely contributed. Paranoia that proves completely accurate, Sarah noted. Making observations. We must proceed cautiously. These individuals, Teresa and Victor, have executed a sophisticated long-term fraud. If your mother was about to expose them, she left the implication unspoken. That I thought about my mother's final day, how she'd appeared anxious yet determined when departing for her meeting with Victor. What's my next step? I inquired. First, we document everything. I know a forensic accountant who can track financial movements. Then we must establish Teresa's genuine identity clearly. She's not who she claims to be. My phone buzzed with another Teresa message. Darling, I noticed you removed some papers from the attic. Anything interesting? I'd love to examine them with you. She's growing anxious, Sarah observed. Good. Let her wonder what you've discovered. But be cautious. People who've orchestrated something this elaborate can become dangerous when trapped. I considered my mother's final journal entry, her determination to protect me and expose the truth. 17 years later, I was finally continuing where she had stopped. Over the following 2 weeks, Sarah's investigation revealed layers of deception. Teresa's actual name was Teresa Blackwood, and she'd executed this same scheme twice previously, infiltrating wealthy families, manipulating estate planning, then disappearing with substantial assets once her position was secure. Look at this, Sarah said, spreading documents across her office desk. 3 different identities, 3 wealthy widowers, 3 compromised family trusts. She collaborates with different attorneys each time, but the pattern remains identical. I studied the photographs, Teresa, with varying hair colors and names, but always that same calculating smile, always positioning herself as the perfect second wife while slowly seizing control. And Victor, he's been disbarred in 2 states for ethics violations, somehow obtained licensing here under a slightly modified name. He specializes in identifying vulnerable, wealthy families, then introducing them to his clients, women like Teresa, who understand how to execute the long-term strategy. My phone continued buzzing with Teresa's hourly messages. We should lunch soon. Darling, I'm concerned about you spending excessive time in that dusty attic. Dwelling on the past isn't healthy. I showed Sarah the text. She's been pressuring me to surrender anything I found up there, claiming she's worried about my obsession with old papers. She's concerned, Sarah noted. Probably realizes the diary is missing. Have you informed your father? I shook my head. Over the years, Teresa had carefully isolated him, suggesting relocations to new cities, subtle distancing from old friendships. Now, in Florida, he was completely under her influence. We need solid evidence before approaching him, Sarah advised. Something he cannot ignore, even with Teresa influencing his thoughts. That proof arrived unexpectedly. A private investigator Sarah hired located Teresa's previous victim, Robert Hendorson, a retired executive who'd lost millions to her scheme. She was Teresa Morgan then. He told us via video call, claimed to be a grieving widow, just like with me. By the time I understood what she'd done, she'd vanished with half my asset. The lawyer who assisted her sounds exactly like your victim. I thought about my mother's final journal entry, her desperate need to protect our family from this identical fate. Now, 17 years later, I possessed the evidence she had died trying to find out my confrontation with Teresa was carefully planned. Sarah advised meeting her in a public location with witnesses nearby and recording equipment ready. I chose the same restaurant where my mother had spotted her with Victor years earlier. "Darling, you seem tense," Teresa said, settling into her chair with practiced elegance. "I've been so worried. All this time spent digging through old items isn't healthy." "Actually, I discovered something interesting in the attic," I replied, sliding my mother's diary across the table. Mom's final diary. You remember my mom, don't you? Or should I say, Teresa Blackwood remembers her. The transformation in her expression was subtle but immediate. The warm concern vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I don't understand what you're implying," she said, but her eyes fixed on the diary. "Honestly, Isabel, these conspiracy theories are concerning, just like your poor mother's were. Like my mother, who caught you plotting with Victor, who was going to expose you the day she died." I kept my voice steady despite my hands shaking beneath the table. "We found Robert Henderson, by the way, and the Palmers, your previous victims." She didn't flinch, but her knuckles whitened around her coffee cup. "Those are ridiculous accusations. Your father will be very upset to hear you're spreading such lies." My father will be more upset to learn his wife is already married to someone else. "Richard Conway sends his regards. By the way, his actual wife was very interested to hear about you." For the first time, genuine fear flickered across her face. "Whatever you think you know, I know everything," I interrupted. "The false identity, the previous scams, Bicatore disabramento. The only thing I don't know is what really happened the day my mother died." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I don't have to listen to this. You clearly need help, just like your mother did." "Sit down," I said quietly, "unless you want to explain everything to the FBI agents." At the next table, financial fraud across state lines is a federal crime, isn't it? She sank back into her chair, that perfect mask finally cracking. "What do you want?" "The truth. Starting with what you and Victor did to my mother." Teresa's composure crumbled completely. Her face twisted into something ugly and desperate, a look I'd never seen beneath her polished exterior. "Your mother was going to ruin everything," she spat, her voice barely above a whisper. "She'd found proof that Victor and I had worked together before, documents that showed my real identity. She was going to show your father that morning." My hands gripped the edge of the table. "What did you do?" "We didn't mean for her to die," Teresa said, her eyes darting around the cafe. "Victor just gave her something to make her confused during the meeting, to make her seem unstable. Her heart conditioned. We didn't know it would." The FBI agents were already moving toward our table. They'd heard everything through the wire I was wearing. Watched as the color drained from Teresa's face when she realized what was happening. "Teresa Blackwood," one agent said, showing his badge. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and involvement in the death of Catherine Andrews." I sat there, my whole body shaking, as they led Teresa away. Sarah appeared at my side, squeezing my shoulder. "Victor's been arrested too," she said quietly. "They picked him up at his office 20 minutes ago." My phone buzzed, Dad calling. He'd just been interviewed by the FBI at his home in Florida. Isabel, his voice cracked. Is it true? All of it. Yes, Dad. I found Mom's diary. She was trying to protect us. She knew what Teresa was planning. There was a long pause. I should have listened to your mother's concerns. Should have seen through Teresa's act. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. For the first time since finding the diary, I felt tears rolled down my cheeks. Not tears of anger or frustration, but of relief. My mom's last fight was finally over. She'd protected me through her words, through her determination to uncover the truth. Even when she couldn't be there to do it herself, the evidence my mom had gathered, combined with what Sarah's investigation uncovered, was overwhelming. Teresa and Victor had orchestrated similar schemes before, but they'd never killed anyone. My mom's death may have been unintentional, but they were still responsible. As I left the cafe that day, I felt lighter somehow. The weight of years of unanswered questions, of subtle manipulations and hidden truths was finally lifting. My mom's diary, her final gift to me, had exposed not just Teresa's deception, but also given me back something I'd lost. The truth about who my mother really was and the fierce love that had driven her to protect her family until the very end. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The house I'd been preparing to sell became a source of comfort rather than painful memories. I spent evenings in my mom's old reading nook, going through her diary again and again, this time not searching for clues, but simply connecting with her voice. Her thoughts, her love for us, that shone through every page. My dad moved back from Florida temporarily, staying in a condo nearby while the legal mess got sorted out. The investigation revealed that Teresa had already started transferring small amounts of money to hidden accounts. She'd been preparing her exit strategy, just like with her previous victims. If it hadn't been for my mom's diary, we might have lost everything. I keep thinking about your mother's last days, my dad said one evening as we sat in the backyard, the same garden my mom had loved tending. The way Teresa and Victor dismissed her concerns made me doubt my own wife's sanity. I can never forgive myself for that. I reached over and squeezed his hand. The anger I'd felt toward him had mellowed into understanding. Teresa had manipulated everyone, playing a long game with the expertise of a career con artist. Even Sarah said she'd never seen someone this calculating. The FBI investigation uncovered more victims. 5 families, not 3, like we initially thought. Each time, Teresa had used a different name, different lawyer, but the same careful grooming of wealthy widowers. She'd perfected her act over the years, but my mom had seen through it. My brave, intelligent mother hadn't been paranoid. She'd been the only one clear-headed enough to spot the predator in our midst. The discovery about my mom's death hit the hardest. The medical examiner reviewed her case and found traces of a drug that would have interacted fatally with her heart medication. Not enough to rule it a homicide back then. But, combined with Teresa's confession at the cafe, it was enough now. They were charging both her and Victor with involuntary manslaughter. I found myself spending more time at the office, diving back into my architectural work with renewed energy. My colleagues noticed the change in me. You seem different, my assistant mentioned one day. More confidence somehow. She was right. Unraveling Teresa's deception had awakened something in me, a strength I inherited from my mom but had never fully embraced. I started speaking up more in meetings, pushing back against compromises I would have accepted before, the way my mom refused to back down when she knew something was wrong. That was part of me too. The estate lawyer helped us untangle the mess of documents Teresa and Victor had created. Most of their changes weren't even legal. They'd counted on no one examining the papers too closely. My dad insisted on putting everything in my name now. "It's what your mother wanted," he said, "to protect your inheritance." But it wasn't about the money. It was about justice, not just for us, but for every family Teresa had targeted. Each new revelation in the case brought another layer of vindication for my mom. The paranoid woman had been right all along, and now everyone knew it. I kept the diary on my bedside table, no longer hidden away in a dusty attic. Sometimes late at night, I'd open it and read random entries from happier days when my mom wrote about her hopes for my future, her love for our family, must protect Isabel's inheritance, she'd written at the end. And she had not just the material inheritance, but something far more precious, the truth. Sarah helped me prepare for the court proceedings. Teresa and Victor both took plea deals. They knew their scheme had finally unraveled completely. The day of their sentencing, I decided to make a victim impact statement. I needed them to hear what they'd stolen from me, from all of us. Standing at the podium in that courtroom, I looked directly at Teresa, her designer outfits replaced by prison beige. "You didn't just try to steal our family's assets," I said, my voice steady. "You stole 17 years of truth from me, years I spent doubting my mother's judgment, believing she'd lost touch with reality in her final days. But she was the only one who saw you clearly." Victor couldn't even meet my eyes, staring down at his hands. His legal career was over. The bar associations in all 3 states were revoking his licenses permanently. The other families came forward too, each one sharing a similar story of manipulation and betrayal. Robert Henderson hugged me after the sentencing. "Your mother," he said, "she did what none of us could. She left behind the evidence that finally stopped them." My dad started seeing a therapist to process everything. "I need to understand how I let myself be so thoroughly deceived," he told me. "How I could doubt your mother like that." Slowly, he began reconnecting with old friends, rebuilding the social circle Teresa had systematically dismantled. The company needed attention too. Years of Teresa's influence had left their mark on the business. I took a leave of absence from my architectural firm to help my dad restructure things. It felt right stepping into this role, not because anyone pressured me, but because I chose it. My mom would have liked that. One afternoon, I found myself in her old office at the house, the one Teresa had quickly converted into her meditation room after moving in. I stripped away the beige paint Teresa had used to cover my mom's vibrant blue walls. Under the windowsill, I found a small heart my mom had carved with our initials inside. She'd shown it to me once, her secret rebellion against the perfect showroom house Teresa wanted. "I'm thinking of keeping the house," I told my dad over dinner. "Not selling it after all," he smiled. "Your mother would love that. She always said this place had a soul." I nodded. "I keep finding little pieces of her everywhere, things Teresa tried to erase but couldn't quite manage. The upcoming trial for my mom's death would be harder, but I was ready for it. The prosecutors were confident about the involuntary manslaughter charges. Teresa's confession at the cafe, combined with the new medical evidence, painted a clear picture of their desperate attempt to silence my mom. "You're so much like her," my dad said one evening, looking at an old photo of my mom in her garden. She never backed down when she knew she was right, even when everyone else thought she was wrong. I touched the photo gently. She never got to see them face justice. No, my dad agreed, but she made sure you would. Everything she wrote down, every piece of evidence she gathered, she did that for you. I thought about my mom's final diary entry, cut short by her confrontation with Victor. She didn't get to finish her last message, but she'd said enough. She'd given me the weapons I needed to fight back, to expose the truth, to reclaim our family's story. They say time heals all wounds, but I think the truth heals them better. It's been 6 months since Teresa's sentencing, and I'm finally feeling like myself again, or maybe a stronger version of myself. The nightmares about my mom's last day have stopped. Instead, I dream about her in her garden, smiling, proud of what I've become. The company is thriving now that we've cleared out all of Teresa's toxic influences. I split my time between running the financial side of things and my architectural work. My dad's retired for real this time, but he still drops by to mentor some of our younger employees. The light is back in his eyes, something I hadn't even realized was missing during the Teresa years. Sarah and I started a foundation in my mom's name, helping families affected by estate fraud. You'd be surprised how common it is. Predators like Teresa targeting vulnerable widows and widowers. We offer legal support, forensic accounting, and most importantly, a community of people who understand. Robert Henderson is on our board of directors, turning his pain into purpose, just like we did. My mom's diary sits in a special place in my office now, a reminder of her courage and determination. Sometimes when I'm facing a tough decision, I'll open it randomly and read an entry. Her wisdom still guides me. Her strength still flows through my veins. The woman who saw through Teresa's perfect mask, who fought to protect her family until her last breath. That's my mother's real legacy to me. The house feels different too. No more walking on eggshells. No more hiding who we are. I filled it with colors my mom would have loved, hanging her art back on the walls where it belongs. This isn't just the house where I unmasked a con artist anymore. It's home again. Finally, last week I found one last letter from my mom tucked inside an old book in her office. Not part of her diary, but a separate note written just days before. She died. My dearest Isabel, it began, if you're reading this, trust your instincts. I've raised you to see the truth even when others try to hide it. I keep thinking about how my mom fought alone, carrying the weight of her discoveries while everyone dismissed her concerns. But she never gave up. She kept gathering evidence, kept writing in her diary, kept trying to protect us until the very end. She made sure the truth would find its way to me. Even if she couldn't be here to reveal it herself, the trial for my mom's death starts next month. Teresa and Victor will face new charges, their carefully constructed facades completely shattered. But I'm not afraid anymore. Every time I walk into that courtroom, I'll bring my mom's strength with me. Her diary resting in my bag like a shield. Her words guiding me forward. My dad said something beautiful yesterday as we sat in my mom's garden, now blooming again after years of Teresa's neglect. Your mother's greatest gift wasn't exposing Teresa, he said. It was showing you your own power, the power to stand up, to seek justice, to protect what matters. He's right. Through her diary, my mom taught me that one person's determination to uncover the truth can change everything. She couldn't finish her fight, but she made sure I could finish it for her. And now, sitting in this garden she loves so much, watching the flowers she planted bloom again, I know that some legacies can never be stolen. They just grow stronger with time.